Welcome to Accounting 1A. We are going to dive right in and get started with Learning Unit 1 from your textbook, an introduction to business, bookkeeping, and accounting. So I'm going to deal with a couple of the most important concepts in this learning unit. It's always been, I want to say, the only very theory-heavy learning unit in your accounting module in 1A. And it has been challenging for students to memorize and I think understand the context and the place that this chapter has in terms of the rest of the textbook. So that's what I've tried to do on the slides as you work your way through this learning unit, is just highlight and unpack, I want to say, the relevance of the learning unit, but also the most important concepts that you need to be able to understand and obviously explain to us in an assessment. Okay, so this specific slide, not anywhere from your textbook. I will link it to your textbook in the next couple of slides. But in general, we tend to jump straight into the textbook and speaking financial language and speaking accounting. And a lot of the time, I think it's important that we take a step back and ask ourselves, especially if you've had no experience to this module before, I think it's important for us to take a step back and ask ourselves, what is accounting in general? If we speak accounting and we throw the word around quite often, obviously you doing a module, do we even understand what we are speaking about? Secondly, why do you need to do accounting? So why is it part of your course? Why is it part of your syllabus? And why is it actually such an important component of business in general and of any kind of BCom related qualification? And then thirdly, why do we do accounting the way we do it? And the reason why I ask that question is because a lot of students can get quite frustrated with the specific ways and also the mannerisms or the rules that we adopt and that we teach you throughout this module. And that's why I included this question. So why do we do accounting the way we do it? It's not just the lecturer standing in front of the class explaining things in some kind of weird way and you really don't understand why. There are certain rules and practices that we follow. So it's a bit of a universal language. So it's it's rules that we follow, and that's why accounting is dealt with in the way that we deal with it. Okay, so accounting in general, very, very informal summary for you to get your head around it. Say specifically if you're coming in clean slate, you have no idea what this module is all about. So accounting for you, for first year purposes, we are recording, and with recording we mean writing up as you would in a book. Specific books looks in a very specific manner. We write down financial information in a business, and we do this using, like I mentioned earlier, specific rules and specific practices and a very specific way of doing things. So we record and capture the financial information in a business, and why this is important is because this is the way that we deal with financial information that enables us to understand the finances of a business. To be able to understand finances, interpret the financial language, and ultimately be able to do a lot of projections and assessments about whether the business is A, maybe financially successful, B, financially viable, whether it's worth investing in the business, whatever your reasons are that you'll see a bit later about why you need to look at a specific business. We look at financial performance or financial numbers, I want to say first and foremost, before we look at anything else. And accounting allows us to have that information in front of us. Okay, so obviously down the line, hopefully by the time that you finish with this module, you'll be able to come back and say, you know what, I've now managed to produce financial results so that someone can unpack and say, you know what, this business is doing well or it's not doing well. Okay, so that's why we do accounting. So thirdly, the way in which we do accounting, and you'll see a couple of these words floating about in your learning unit 1, we follow specific international rules. Now that's not too stressed in accounting 1, but if you had to move on to accounting 2 and maybe accounting 3, you'll see these names come across a lot more often. But in first year, we already try and follow these international rules, which is a bit different from if you did this module at school. They're not too fixated on following the international reporting standards, but as you move over to university, we then follow the rules more closely. So the international rules, abbreviated the IFRS, so the International Financial Reporting Standards, you'll see about them in your textbook. We follow a specific system, and the specific system tells us quite a lot about why and how we classify things in a certain way and how we need to go and record them. So that recording, writing down of financial information doesn't just happen individually, and no person can just decide exactly what they want to do with the information. There are specific sets of rules that we follow. So that's why I said on the slide towards the bottom right, accounting is done in a uniform way so that it's easily understandable and comparable. And with that, we mean that if you can look at one business's financial results, you should be able to understand any other business. So it's got the same language, and that's why we actually say accounting is a language. And if you battle with understanding accounting, maybe think about it as the financial language, okay, as you would regard any other language that you speak. Okay, so I want to say the first important thing for me in this learning unit is your users and the uses of financial information. So on the previous slide, I briefly touched on you ultimately moving towards producing financial results. And financial results are useful in various different reasons. And I touched on that. I said you can look at whether the business is viable or not. And that then moves us over into Learning Unit 1, into the users. First, I'm going to just speak about the users. So people that are interested in your financial information. You can read about that on page 4 and 5 of your textbook. So the textbook just summarizes this actually quite well. I suggested that you maybe make a mind map for yourself if you battle with learning theory, just to maybe draw a little picture, maybe something in the middle saying who are the users of financial information. So who are the people that are interested in looking at my financial results. So we refer to those people as stakeholders. I think a term that you'll be getting quite comfortable with. We use it in a couple of modules. The stakeholders just literally means people that have a vested interest in your business. Okay, there's also an activity that I've designed for you to take a look at some users of a real world business. The business that I chose is the Woolworths Group. You have access to their financial results, and you can go and see whether you can identify the users of their financial information. Okay, and then secondly on the slide, over and above our users of financial information, we also have various different reasons why users are interested. Okay, so obviously you have people that want to look at your financial information, but the why would also be important, and you can read more about that on page 5 and page 6. Okay, so this is all still background about why financial information is relevant. So why is it relevant for you to do accounting and understand accounting? Is because financial information that you produce using accounting is relevant for people for various different reasons in the world of business.